Welcome back to another crochet tutorial with Cozy Rosie UK, and today I'm sharing with you how to crochet this Filet Crochet Christmas present. This panel is releasing as part of the Jolly Holiday crochet blanket, and you can find all of the other Filet Crochet patterns over in the playlist on my channel. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and of course the notification bell so that you never miss out another one of my crochet patterns or tutorials again. Now the materials that I've used for each of the panels in this blanket is Paintbox Yarns Simply Aran, which is a size 4 yarn and 100% acrylic. The recommended hook size for this weight yarn is traditionally a 5mm hook, but I've gone up just 0.5 millimeter to create this a bit more drape to the panels, so it makes it more of a snuggly blanket. So grab your materials and let's get started. So with your slip knot on your hook, we're going to start by making a chain of 66 by yarning over and pulling through the hook. So make a chain of 66 and I'll meet you back for the remainder of row 1. Once you've made your chain of 66, we're going to yarn over and we're going to be working into our 4th chain from hook. So this loop doesn't count. There's chain 1, 2, 3 and 4. And we're going to work underneath just the top loop of our chain, working a US double crochet or a UK treble crochet. So we yarn over the hook, insert underneath the 4th chain, yarn over to bring a loop up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. This chain 3 that we've skipped counts as the first double crochet as our row. For the remainder of row 1, we're going to be working into each stitch across, placing 1 US double crochet, 1 UK treble crochet. And that will give us a stitch count, including those skip chain of 3, of 64. So continue across, working 1 double crochet into each chain across, and I'll meet you for row 2. So at the end of row 1, you will have a stitch count of 64, including that chain 3 that we skipped at the beginning of the row. So for row 2, we start with a turning chain of 3. Those first 3 chains count as our first double crochet of the row. We're then going to yarn over and work 1 double crochet into the next stitch. Because that chain 3 counts, we start in the next. We're going to be working 1 double crochet into each stitch across, and I'm going to meet you all the way over at the end of row 2 to work into the top of our turning chain. So continue working 1 double crochet into each stitch across, and I'll meet you at the end of the row. Once you've worked all the way across for row 2, you should currently have a stitch count of 63. For each row that we're working in this pattern, we need to ensure that we work 1 double crochet into the top of our turning chain. So we're aiming for that 3rd chain that we skipped right at the top, just gently pushing it onto my hook and working 1 final double crochet into the top of that chain 3. Now for row 3, we are simply going to repeat row 2, working 1 double crochet into each stitch across and 1 extra double crochet in the top of our turning chain. So at the end of row 3, make sure you've worked into the top of your turning chain and to maintain your stitch count of 64. We're going to head straight into row 4. We're starting with our turning chain of 3, and here we're going to be working our first row of filet crochet. So we start by making 1 double crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. We're then going to work a chain of 2, so we chain 1, chain 2 and skip the next 2 stitches. The chain 2 and the skip 2 create the open blocks. Now this row is made up predominantly of open blocks, and we're going to do the next stage 16 times altogether. So what we're doing is we're yarning over ready, we've skipped 1, skipped 2, we're working 1 double crochet into the next, we chain 2, skip 2 and repeat that for a total of 16 times. So we've done it once, skip 2, so this is number 2, chain, double crochet, chain 2, so that was the 2nd time, skip 2, double crochet for a 3rd time, chain 2, skip 2. We're going to repeat that for 16 times in total, and we've already done 1, 2 and 3. So continue to repeat that across. It will look like you have 16 open spaces, and we'll just have this chain 2 at the end. So work 1 double crochet, chain 2, skip 2 16 times. This isn't number 1, this is number 1, 2 and 3, and continue to repeat that across until you've done it for a total of 16 times. Once you've done all 16 repeats, you will look like you've got 16 open blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. And we have another chain 2 here that we're about to use to create a 17th open block. So we're going to skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and we have to work 1 double crochet into the top of our turning chain to complete our row. So at the end of row 4, you're going to have 17 open blocks. As you can see, my chains are a little bit tight, so it's making my crochet curl. It's fine, it will even out because the chains are actually quite stretchy, so don't worry if yours is starting to look a bit smiley. I promise you it'll all be okay. We're going to go straight into row 5 because we're repeating row 2. So we start with our turning chain of 3, and we're going to work 1 double crochet into each chain and stitch across. So I'm going to work my first 6 or so with you so I can show you how to work into these chain 2 spaces. We need to make sure we work into the one above that first stitch before our chain 2 space. Then we're going to work directly into the chain 2 space. So I've just yarned over straight into the chain 2 space, and we're working 2 stitches. So that's number 1 and number 2, and then we're working a double crochet into the top of the stitch from the previous row. Now normally we wouldn't repeat this all the way across, but of course we've got all these open blocks to fill up. So once it's full, it should look a little bit like that. So you have a stitch either side and 2 into the chain 2 space. So continue across, repeating row 2, which is working 1 double crochet into each stitch and chain across. And I will meet you for row 6. Of course, you're not going to forget to work that final double crochet into the top of your turning chain. I'll meet you for row 6. So at the end of row 5, you should be looking a little bit more solid. Don't forget to work into the top of your turning chain from the previous row, and we are ready to go into row 6. We're going to start with our turning chain of 3. We are then going to work 1 double crochet into the next 6 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 6. We're then going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 46 stitches. So work 1 double crochet into each of the next 46, that's 3, and I will meet you for the next part of row 6. And 46. That takes us all the way back over. And we're going to work our chain of 2, skip 2, and then we're going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. That's 3 and 6, before of course finishing off working our double crochet into the top of our turning chain. So at the end of row 6, you will have 1 open block at each end. So for rows 7 through to 11, we're going to be repeating row 5 and 6. So row 5 is the same as row 2, and then row 6 we've just worked here. You can of course use the timestamps at the side here. So for row, we're going to do a solid row for 7, and then row 8 will be the same as our open block. 9 will be the same as a solid block, as a solid row, and then 10 would be with this one open block. And then we finish for row 11 with another solid block. So work rows 7 through to 11, repeating rows 5 and 6, and I will meet you for row 12. So once you have worked rows 7 through to 11, you're going to have quite a large bit of crochet already. You should have 3 rows that have those open blocks in a row, well 4 including the big one, and you should have finished on a closed or a solid row. Of course you could just count them, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. Let's go into row 12. And we begin with our turning chain of 3. We are then working 1 double crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. That's 2, 3, and 6. We're going to chain 2. I can't count. That's only 5. And 6. We then chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4 again. 2, 3 and 4, and chain 2. I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches, ready to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 22 stitches. 2, 3 and number 22. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4. That's 2, 3 and 4. Going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4 again. 2, 3 and 4. We're going to chain 2, and that leaves us to skip the next 2, working 1 double crochet into each of the next 6, and of course working that final one into the top of our turning chain so that we maintain our stitch count of 64. You should have 6 open blocks, 3 at each end, and row 13 is going to be a repeat of row 3. So we make our turning chain of 3 and then work 1 double crochet into each stitch and chain across, including into the top of your turning chain to maintain that stitch count of 64. For rows 14 and 15, we're going to be repeating rows 12 and 13 again. So you can use the timestamp below to go back to the beginning of row 12. You're going to be matching row 12 and then a solid row for row 13, for row 14 and 15. So complete row 13, working 1 double crochet into each stitch and chain across, and then repeat row 12 and 13 for rows 14 and 15, and I'm going to meet you back for row 16. Once you've repeated rows 12 and 13, you should be looking like this. We're going to go straight into row 16 with our starting chain or a turning chain of 3. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 6. That's number 6. We're going to chain 2. We're then going to skip the next 2 before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 7. So that's 1, 2, 7, chain 2, skip the next 2 before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4. So that's 2, 3 and 4. Chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 16 stitches. That's 3, 4 and 16. Once you've worked those 16, we're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4. That's 2, 3 and 4. Chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 7. That's 2 and 7. Going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 6, which of course takes us back to our turning chain where we have to work that extra double crochet into the top. There's number 6, and then we just need to work into the top of our turning chain. Mine are incredibly tight today for some reason. There it is. So we're creating our bow, believe it or not, at the moment. Now at the end of row 16, that's what we should be looking like, and row 17 is another repeat of row 2. So we make our turning chain of 3 before working 1 double crochet into each chain and stitch across. Of course, don't forget to work into that top of that turning chain at the end, so you maintain your stitch count of 64. I will see you back in a moment for row 18. So at the end of row 17, you still have your stitch count of 64. Just done my turning chain for row 18, and we're going to go straight in with working 1 double crochet into each of the next 6. That's 2 and 6. Going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 10. So that's 2, 3 and 10. Going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. Going to chain 2. Once we've done the chain 2, we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, working 1 double crochet into each of the next 10. 3 and 10. Chain 2, skip the next 2 before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 10. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 and 10. We chain 2, and of course we have, well, skip 2, and then we're working 1 double crochet into each of the next 6 stitches back to our turning chain. Row 19, we are repeating row 2 for a change. So we're going to be working our turning chain of 3 before working 1 double crochet into each stitch and chain across. Repeat row 2 for row 19, and I'll meet you back for row 20. This box is fair building up. I think we're getting ready to do the top of the box, not this row, don't worry, in the next. So we're going to do row 20. We're starting with our turning chain of 3. We're going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 6, 2 and 6. We're then going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 13. So that's 2, 3 and 13. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into the next 4, 2, 3 and 4. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before repeating that twice more. So this is for the second time, working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4. That's 2, 3 and 4, chain 2, skip 2, and for the third and final time we're working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4 again. So that's 2, 3 and 4, chain 2, skip 2, and then we're working 1 double crochet into each of the next 13 stitches. 3, 4 and 13. We chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 6, and of course working that extra double crochet into the top of our turning chain. So row 21 is a nice easy repeat of, you guessed it, row 2. So we're doing our turning chain of 3 and working 1 double crochet into each stitch and chain across. Don't forget to work into the top of your turning chain, and I'm going to meet you back for row 22. So row 21 is our last repeat of row 2 for a little while, so don't go rushing ahead after this row. We've done our turning chain of 3. Of course, we're starting by working 1 double crochet into each of the next 6. So that's 1, 2 and 6. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 13 stitches. That's 2, 3 and 13. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into the next. Chain 2 again and skip the next 2 stitches. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches, and we repeat that again, working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4. That's 3 and 4. Chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into the next. Chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 13 stitches. 3, 4. Once we've worked those double crochets into those 13 stitches, we chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 6, back to our turning chain. Now row 23 is not a repeat of row 2. Instead, we're going to start with our turning chain of 3, and we are working 1 double crochet, and we're working 1 double crochet into each of the next 18 stitches. So that's 2, 3 and 18. We're then going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 7. So that's 3 and 7. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4. That's 2, 3 and 4. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before we work 1 double crochet into each of the next 7. That's 3 and number 7. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 18, which will take us all the way back to our beginning turning chain, where we need to work that additional double crochet into the top. Continue across and I'll meet you ready for the next row. Really making some detail on that bow. Going into row 24, we start with our turning chain of 3 and we're working 1 double crochet into each of the next 6. That's 1, 2, this is number 6. We're going to chain 2, we skip the next 2 before working 1 double crochet into the next. We chain 2, skip 2 and repeat that for a second time, working 1 double crochet into the next. We're going to repeat that for a third time by chaining 2, skip 2, and of course work that double crochet and chain 2. I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 13 stitches. That's 2, 3 and 13. Chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working that again. We're repeating that, working 1 double crochet into each of the next 13 stitches. 2, 3, 4 and 13. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches, working 1 double crochet into the next. We're going to do that, chain 2, skip 2 and repeat that twice more. So 1 double crochet in the next, chain 2, skip 2, 1 double crochet into the next. For the final time now, chain 2, skip 2 and we're ready to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 6, which takes us back to our beginning where we work that double crochet into the top of our turning chain. That's us worked the top of our box, the top of our gift. I keep calling it a box. I suppose it is. It's a gift box with a bow on it. Makes it a Christmas present. Let's jump straight into row 25 and begin with our turning chain of 3. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 18 stitches. That's 3 or 2, sorry, 3 and 18. That's filled in those blocks. We're going to make our chain of 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4. That's 3 and 4. Going to chain 2, skip the next 2 and we're going to work 1 double crochet in the next, chain 2, skip 2, and we're going to do that 4 times in total. So that was number 1. So we've skipped 2 and we're double crocheting into the next for the second time, chain 2, skip the chain 2 space. Let's do it for a third time, double crochet in the next, chain 2, skip 2. For the fourth and final time, we're going to work 1 double crochet, chain 2. Going to skip the next 2 stitches, ready to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4. Going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before we work 1 double crochet into each of the next 18 stitches, which takes us all the way back to our turning chain. Just need to work that extra double crochet into the top of our turning chain and I'll meet you for row 26. Perhaps that was the top of the box. No, that's definitely the bottom of the bow. So for row 26, we are starting with our turning chain of 3. We are going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 30 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 30. We're going to chain 2, skip that chain 2 space before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 30 stitches all the way back to our turning chain, where we're just going to work that extra double crochet into the top of that turning chain, and I'll meet you for row 27. So at the end of row 26, we just have one measly little open space, but for row 27 we're going to start with our turning chain of 3. We're going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 18 stitches. That's 2, 3. Once you've worked those 18 double crochets, we're going to make our chain of 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 7 stitches. That's 2, 3 and 7. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. We're then going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 7. So that's 2, 3 and 7. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 18 stitches, which will take us back to the top of our turning chain where we work that extra double crochet. Work those last remaining 18 stitches and into the top of your turning chain, and I will meet you for row 28. At the end of row 27, we're getting very close to the end of this pattern, aren't we? We're going to work row 28, which is our final filet crochet row. Just worked my turning chain of 3, and we're going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 21 stitches. That's 2 and 21. We're going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into the next. Chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into the next 10 stitches. That's 2, 3 and 10. We're going to chain 2, 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into the next. Chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches before working 1 double crochet into each of the next 21 stitches all the way back to your turning chain, where of course we're just going to work that extra double crochet. Continue across and I'll meet you back for row 29. So at the end of row 28, we've actually completed the filet crochet pattern portion, so to speak, and rows 29 and 30 are very simply a repeat of row 2. So we're working our turning chain of 3 and 1 double crochet into each stitch across and chain for row 29 at least. And of course you're working your extra double crochet into the top of your turning chain to maintain that stitch count of 64. I hope you've enjoyed making your very own Christmas present, and of course you're joining in with the Jolly Holiday Blanket Crochet Along. I will see you in the next video.